That's right guys, the M104 Turbo is back in action and better than ever before, but more on that later on in the video. For now, let's head on over to the workshop and pick things up where we left off in the previous video. Now with these cars and the insane power they make, after race day it's best to check a few things over. First up was removing the oil filter so that we can open it up and see what's going on inside of it. Next up, I drained the engine oil that's actually inside the car in a tank that's part of the dry sump system. I ran that through a paint strainer just to make sure everything is good to go. The oil was clean as can be, so we can move on and fix a small oil leak. I had to do a small adjustment on one of the oil fittings to take care of that leak. Now just to add some fresh new oil, and with that Zangzilla is just about ready for Talton at the end of the month, which is going to be a big event. But there is one more change, and that is changing up the rear differential ratio. So because the event at Midway was only an 1/8 mile, the one at Talton is going to be a full 1/4 mile. So it's going to need some longer gear ratios. Now to do that, I removed the rear wheels as well as the brake calipers and discs. Once that's done, I could remove the 2 side shafts. I kind of forgot to drain the oil, so I did that next before removing the other drive shaft. With the side shafts removed, I could go ahead and remove the center portion. Now this thing has some weight to it, but it's understandable. There's a lot of power going through this. Now we are waiting on one of the bearings, so once we get that in, we can swap out to the longer ratios. Another thing I wanted to do is, for some reason, this differential didn't have a drain plug, so I thought this was the perfect time to add one. As you saw in the previous video, I used the heat gun to heat up the intake because methanol, that's the fuel these cars run on, do not like the cold. Methanol also is very corrosive, so we don't leave that in the vehicles as that might cause damage to the injectors. So the last step was draining all the fuel out. Then I poured about 5 liters of gas into the fuel tank, and then we start up the car once again for the gas to go through the whole fuel system. Now while I was busy with that, I moved over to Venom and did the exact same thing. I don't know if you can hear that on camera, but it does sound a little different on the gas. But anyway, you guys are probably wondering what the hell happened to Venom. After seeing all that carnage, it was decided that the whole diff will need to be sent in to get fully rebuilt. So let me disassemble everything so that we can send this off and get fixed before the Talton event. That's right, the goal is to get Venom ready for that too. while I was busy on Zangzilla and Venom, over in the center work bay, the boys were hard at work starting to put together Lola the 2JZ Corolla. And that's what you call a successful first startup. And just look at those air intake temps. Lola definitely has some tricks up her sleeve to make her a rocket down the track. And the plan was to turn up the boost even more on the dyno. And then unfortunately the guys realized that something was very wrong. This was no small issue, and they narrowed down the problem immediately to the bottom end of the engine. Meaning the engine that just went back in the car needs to be pulled out once again. That is indeed a very shitty situation, but the team is hard at work on that engine, so she should be back up and running again in no time. But there's a lot more going on at Zank Racing than just drag cars. There's also a few supercars, for example, this Liberty Walk GTR. what an amazing looking machine this is. Now, I haven't been on this side of the workshop much, but I was asked to do some welding on one of the GTR's exhaust systems, and I was more than happy to help out with that. These are some crazy machines. Another really cool car on this side of the workshop is this heavily modified four-wheel drive Evo. So apparently that right there was the first startup of this car in years. That has to be a good feeling. But anyway, I was asked to make a heat shield for the valve cover. So let's see what I can do about that. Now, even though this Evo had its first start up, it was not quite yet drivable. So we had to get that pushed out of the way to open up the lift for the next vehicle. This Lexus V8 powered BMW spin car has something wrong with the gearbox because it's stuck in gear. So I need to remove the gearbox so we can open it up and see what's going on. And with some much needed help from the team, we got that gearbox out in no time. We gave it a quick wash so that I can open it up and see what's going on the inside. It turned out to be this broken fork. So we got that replaced with a brand new one, put everything back together, and it was time for some testing. Now that is how you test drive a spin car. That little backfire you just heard, that was the crank sensor wire coming loose, and the engine will not run without that sensor. At least that was an easier fix than the gearbox. We got that problem solved and could park the car to spin another day. Now, back at home, and let me just say, these last couple of weeks have been amazing. There's about 1 million things going on and it's hard work, but I wouldn't want it any other way. I haven't even shown you guys half of the cars there are at Cezanne Racing, so do consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss anything. I already started working on a Hilux. I have a feeling that's going to be another epic build, but I think the next video is going to be the Talton event because that is in exactly 1 week from today. Lots to do, lots to get ready, but I'm super excited. Oh no! Just move the camera. Now, all that aside, I think it's only fair to give you an update on my own projects and what's been going on here at home. Starting off with this beast. Recently had some timing chain tensioner issues, so I had to replace that and also gave it a quick oil change. This is definitely the most used car in the yard, so always needs to be in tip-top condition for even when I need to put it to work. Like last weekend when I had to use this to tow the M104 to get that new windshield finally installed. Now that the car has a brand new windshield installed, next up I had to fix the brackets because they broke because of a stupid mistake. And thankfully I was allowed to use some of the machinery to get that sorted out. As I went to install these now fixed brackets, turns out they are bent. Luckily I got another hood over here that I got from a friend, so I could use the brackets off that. That is if I can get them off. There we have it. The M104 Turbo has no more oil leaks, a fresh new windshield, and making more power than ever. Damn, this thing is fun. It's not perfect, but I sure do love it. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and then I'll see you in the next one. Peace.